Well, Dr. Andrew Pocock, the former British High Commissioner to Nigeria, has revealed that a large group of the kidnapped Chibok schoolgirls was spotted by UK and American surveillance officials shortly after their disappearance. The girls were kidnapped by Boko Haram militants on the 14th of April 2014. 57 of those girls managed to beat their abductors, but more than 200 remained in their group. Well, Sophia Dengo is tracking those recent developments. We chat to her on the line now. Good afternoon, Sophia. Some startling revelations. Do we know why there was no immediate intervention when the girls' location was confirmed?
Well, you know, the revelation, I suppose, that has been given by Andrew Pocock in describing the situation shortly after the abduction of the over 200 schoolgirls from their, school in Chibok, is that these girls were spotted by U.S. and British surveillance, in the area of Sambisa. It's estimated about 80 of them were seen under a tree. But what followed is what has become the news element for today. The idea that the U.S. and the UK government were powerless in the term of rescuing these young women, claiming that the Nigerian government, of course, knew that these girls were where they were and, perhaps took a road where it was too risky for them to approach these girls that had been seen on the ground, causing harm to the remaining 200 plus girls, and also desisting from any air raids as a result of, having these needless casualties of these attacks. So it's been a very interesting development here. 2014 was the time that these girls were abducted. This year would mark 2 years of these girls' whereabouts completely going, uncommented on by the Nigerian government. Krishni.
Sophia, those heart-rending images we all remember so vividly went viral globally. We saw such strong European solidarity in the aftermath of the Paris terror attacks, 3.7 million on the march in Europe. But in Africa, we have scores of women and children succumbing to violence and acts of terror like happening in Nigeria. There's such a glaring absence, if you will, or lack of global and regional solidarity in Africa. And one wonders, how is the local media there covering the story at this point, Sophia?
Well, Krishni, when it comes to the local media, there has been a considerable amount of coverage given to bring back our girls. The social media campaign that went viral to include the input of, international governments in bringing about awareness and garnering some kind of support and military capacity in rescuing these girls. The rather unfortunate report is that these girls have not been found, and there have been singular, accounts of girls escaping from the clutches of Boko Haram or from the group, and giving eyewitness accounts that, that these girls are being moved around in various places, some of them used for sinister activity as sex slaves to these, to these groups. But it's difficult to take in the enormity and the time lag that it has taken to return these girls or to rescue them by the Nigerian government. We are very much a part of a first-hand account of marching by these parents to, to President Muhammad Buhari's, State House, really putting out, a heartfelt plea to look for these girls. And many of these parents having traveled from northern Nigeria to really, advocate for the return of their daughters. But, 2 years on, in the shadow of Andrew Pocock's, revelation that the girls may have been spotted, no girls have been returned. Krishni.
When it comes to the Nigerian government, Sophia, where would you say is the Buhari administration right now in this fight against Boko Haram, in its effectiveness and strength in its response, and this lack of collective approach we're seeing in dealing with terror on the continent, really increasing its vulnerability perhaps in working against terrorist groups? And surely this points to a need for more cooperation and information sharing in the region.
Well, Krishni, we as SABC, having covered the Boko Haram insurgency for over 2 years now, have seen a significant decline in attacks here in Nigeria. If that is a plus point, a lot of territory that was taken over by Boko Haram and was out of government control has been taken back and reclaimed. And of course, there's a massive displacement numbers that were part of northern Nigeria, and you're seeing reintegration of these communities and the restoration of daily and normal activity, although Boko Haram is still very much in the country, and so is insurgency. The idea that these neighboring countries have come together to co-op in terms of security has always been a positive, and that has been led largely by President Muhammad Buhari, also reinvigorating his troops to be able to pay close attention to those sensitive areas, especially in the northeast, with Borno being the concentration of Boko Haram, and moving into these hideouts like the Sambisa forest. It is hoped that as time goes on, President Muhammad Buhari will deliver on his initial promise to absolutely eradicate the country of this Islamic extremist group Boko Haram.
Sophia Dengo, live to us there from Nigeria. Thank you for sharing your insights with us on the News Today desk. Let's move on.